Bitcoin in 2026. Here are a few highlights of how we're kicking off the year and what I think is coming this year. First of all, I think it's going to be a great year for Bitcoin in 2026. Obviously, 2025 was mostly flat, depending on where you measure from the start, where you measure from the end. Most of 2025, if you take the whole calendar year, Bitcoin was down a handful of percentage points. Bitcoin made up and got back to even in the first few days of 2026. And made up the losses from 2025 in the first couple days of 2026. But again, still roughly, break even from a little over a year ago from the start of 2025. I think 2026 is going to be an amazing year. If you look at why 2025 was what it was, we broke $100,000 definitively. It just took a long time to finally, clear out all of the people that had $100,000 in their head as a price that they were willing to part with Bitcoin for. There was just a ton of people from the very early days that had it in their head that when Bitcoin hit $100,000, they were going to improve the lives of themselves and their families. They were going to do a bunch of stuff, whatever. For whatever reason, everybody did what they were going to do. Thankfully, that has fallen off a cliff now. It appears, finally, according to James Check, my favorite Bitcoin analyst, that the people who were wanting to sell have sold, and that sell pressure is significantly coming down. The Federal Reserve is no longer making any efforts to tighten the money supply whatsoever. It is just pure money printing from here, which started on December 1st, but will be accelerating. I think 2026 is going to be amazing. And if you zoom out over the last 2 years, Bitcoin had incredible performance over the last 2 years, or the average of the last 2 years. Bitcoin had incredible performance over the average of the last 3 years. It's only when you start breaking it apart that you see that, well, we had insane performance in 2023, 2024, and then mostly flat to slightly down in 2025. So again, as long as you zoom out a little bit, it's like we've had stellar performance over the last 2 years, stellar performance over the last 3 years. You just have to zoom in literally to the calendar year of 2025 if you want to find a time period that is down for a year. But again, it is what it is. Every asset does this. In the case of gold, which was the best performing asset of 2025, gold spent from 2011 to 2019 down, literally 8 solid years. If you bought gold at the peak in 2011, you were waiting until 2019, 8 years later, to be up on your investment. So what's a year? Many investments, even the Magnificent Seven, the 7 most high performing stocks in the U.S. stock market over the last decade, which are Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, Facebook, Tesla, and one more I'm forgetting. Anyway, Google it. Magnificent Seven, or ask ChatGPT who the Magnificent Seven stocks are. Even with the Magnificent Seven stocks, each of those went through multi-month or even multi-year periods where they were down from their all-time high before they came rearing back. And they ultimately became the 7 highest performing stocks. So Bitcoin is in one of those lulls. It has been in one of those lulls for the last year, but it has been in similar lulls a bunch of times. In fact, most of 2012 was like that. Most of 2014, 2015, and 2016, 3 solid years, Bitcoin was mostly in a lull for 3 solid years. Then it went way up. It went up way up in 2011, way up in 2013, way up in 2017. Then it was in a lull for like 2018, 2019, and most of 2020. Then it was in a lull for, it was way down in 2022 after a huge run up in 2021. And then we've had really nice performance in 2022, 2023 and 2024, not 2022. That was a down year. And here we are. We've gone from 5 cents a coin to $92,000 per coin, best performing asset of all time. But it's had multiple years and, extended multiple years where it's either gone sideways or down. And again, I don't think that certainly I don't think is in the cards for 2026, but we had to live through that in 2025. The best part is 2025 is behind us. Everybody thought 2025 was going to be an amazing year for Bitcoin. And guess what? It was in every other way other than price. But if price is all you care about, it was not a great year in 2025 for Bitcoin. But as far as every other aspect of adoption and regulatory clarity and embraced by the banking system, the insurance system, the lending markets, technological advancements with features being added to BitKey, huge strides forward from Coinbase and River and Strike and everybody. I mean, it was just a stellar year for Bitcoin in 2025. on everything except price. But again, that's why I think the price that we were hoping for in 2025 gets delivered in 2026. Certainly it appears everything is lined up that way. So if you want to keep up on the news, because I've been out for the last 10 days, I was at my brother-in-law's wedding and a ski trip before it and a ski trip after it. And so anyway, I've been gone for 10 days. If you've been wondering where I've been, I was in Utah for, skiing, then a wedding, then more skiing for 10 days. But anyway, but you can always keep up on the latest with three things that I always recommend. One, the Jack Mallers podcast. Every week, it's free, and it gives you the macro, biggest picture view of the world and how it applies to Bitcoin. The Jack Mallers podcast. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Natalie Brunell, the number one podcaster in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Natalie Brunell has a weekly news block, which is 10 minutes of the top news of Bitcoin. If you ever feel like you're in the dark, you can get a weekly hit from Jack Mallers and a weekly hit from Natalie Brunell with her 10-minute news block, and that'll get you up to speed on all of the news macro and all of the news, in the case of Natalie Brunell, specific to Bitcoin. And then obviously she has all of her other podcast episodes with her guests and everything like that. And then third, if you want even more than that, sign up for $29 per month for the James Check newsletter. It comes out twice a week. Sometimes there's like a bonus episode, but generally it's twice a week. And James Check is a Bitcoin analyst, and he can tell you exactly what is happening in the on-chain analysis of Bitcoin, meaning what we can learn by who's buying, who's selling, how much leverage there is in the system. Everybody's break-even price points. Again, we don't know the names of specific individuals. We can just tell that sort of who's doing what in macro, even if it's anonymous. What percent of whales are selling versus buying, what percent of short-term holders versus long-term holders are in profit versus not in profit, all of those things. So those three assets, Jack Mallers' podcast, Natalie Brunell's weekly 10-minute news block, and James Check with his Check on Chain newsletter, which is $29 per month. The other two are free, are the best resources to stay in the loop, even if I'm not available. So hopefully you didn't feel like you were in the dark while I was out, because you had those three resources, which just kept on coming. But I am back. So now that I'm back, I will be recording videos regularly. I think 2026 is going to be amazing. There's a bunch of projects I'm working on related to Bitcoin. It's going to be a fantastic time. But I just think we're going to see a stellar year in 2026. And all of the price performance that we were hoping to have in 2025, I think we will get in 2026. And we just had to be patient to get there, which is what investing is all about. Investing is patience. Good investing is spending long periods of time doing absolutely nothing. That is the famous saying about investing, is the best investors are patient and they wait very long periods of time. And that's where we are. Buy as much Bitcoin as you can and then hold on to it as long as conceivably possible. And sometimes the hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible means hold on to it through 2025 when things are not going the way we all want them to go, which is up. And obviously it went up a bunch of times in 2025, but Bitcoin just kept coming back down. But it's a lot better to be in a dip in the 90,000s than a spike in the 90,000s, because it tells you the way the trajectory wants to go. In this case is up, versus the first time we crossed 100,000, the trajectory apparently still wanted to go down some, because there were still too many people with too many coins they had held for too long in too much profit, feeling too rich. And when that happens, too many people feeling too rich for too long, they sell some Bitcoin. And even if it's 1% of their stack, 5% of their stack, 10% of their stack, if they're millionaires, decamillionaires, centimillionaires, billionaires, deca-billionaires, if you make a lot of money on Bitcoin, eventually you're going to want to spend it. And the same will be true of you. But it's 2026. It's going to be an amazing year. And we've already made up pretty much for the losses of 2025 in the first couple days of this year. So we're off to a great start. Anyway, it's going to be fun. So I'm back.